Good evening, YouTubers. It's May 20th again. This is the second video in the same day. Yes, you guessed it. It's a night theme video. It's got my orb out. If you've seen my YouTubes, this is just one of several ridiculous things that I'll occasionally do. Uh, I learned a lot from Coding Train in terms of pedagogical techniques. And kind of my theme here tonight is the best stuff is on YouTube, at least as someone who might get born again, meaning not what do I mean by that? Like if I got reincarnated as a kid, how would I want school to be? And I just watched this amazing fun, it's all kinds of kids in the audience, right? And their parents or whatever. Rocket Science with Professor Chris Bishop, and he shoots off all these rockets. Now, because I'm on YouTube and I'm trying to load YouTube, or because I'm recording and okay, so this never works. But you know what I mean, right? There'll be something here in a little bit. I'll just stop it. There he is. Okay. So this was a wonderful lecture, and I'm thinking on Facebook with my friends. I write. So how do I ride the bus to some building where they project this to the class? Like I don't think we're going to burn rocket fuel for every 200 kids. We can't afford that much. We're gonna make the best use of demos like this and project them, right? So do I ride a bus to some building where they project this to the class, or do I watch it in my personal workspace, perhaps with a bag of nachos? But we can't have youngsters staying home unsupervised, so we bus them to an office building then and give each kid a cubicle? Or what if mom and dad have cubicles at home? Maybe a combination of both. Take the kids to work and they get a cubicle at work. A mixed use building might be more practical. So you can see where I'm going with this, and I talk about this in Medium a lot, where I'm using PWS for personal workspace. And I integrate that acronym. I've seen other people use it into GST for general systems theory. And I investigate the infrastructure of education from the point of view of when are you going to have a file system? Like, okay, so let me just pull up, say, a terminal window. Where's my terminal window here? Okay, it's not the right window. So here's what I mean by a terminal window. Like I've got all these windows open. Like I live in the world that a lot of us live in the office, which is we have prompts like a Python prompt up here, and down here in this other window I've got a bash prompt. So I'm going between these different shells, S-H-E-L-L-S, shells, different prompts. Like, when do you get to sit down and learn to manage a bunch of files? I mean, having a Chromebook and going out on the cloud and saving a few projects, maybe. What concerns me when they talk about the digital divide and they talk about the coding gap or the CS gap or whatever, I don't think people understand the implications of needing a quiet study space that's your home base where your education occurs. Running off to conference rooms and doing tutorials with your laptop like we do in Geek World, that's all fine and good, but where a lot of the learning really happens is in the comfort of your own personal workspace. And that immediately brings us up against the issue that a lot of kids don't have such a space. And they go to school, they get their backpack, and they go from locker to locker or from classroom to classroom. The bells ring, they take the bus home. But home is not a place where there's any internet, or, once you're up against the fact that kids don't have a safe place or a well-equipped place where they just want to sit and like tune in YouTube and watch this rocket science stuff, they can't do that, or if they can't do that, that's kind of, now we're talking standard of living. We're not just talking about grades. We're not talking about something that schools, as they're currently configured, can even begin to address, really. But if we define education as having a personal workspace where you have access to the internet or something like that, if we use different metrics, then suddenly, we're in a new ball game, and I'm suggesting it's long overdue that we be in that new ball game. It's not my doing that we live in this new century here where if you want to stay up to date, you really need something better than a backpack and a laptop even. You need a study carrel. You need a cubicle, what we call a cubicle at least. Now a lot of kids have that. They have a comfortable bedroom and they can't figure out with the computer, internet, they can't figure out why they have to get up early and get on a bus and cram into a building where they have far less internet access and all the things they were studying and the topics and everything. They have to leave that at home. They've got their Zone tool and they've got their projects and they're learning a ton, but no, you got to go to school and it's like almost like wasting time. There's great teachers on the internet, so there's a tension for kids like that, and maybe they get to homeschool. So there's kind of an elite. We used to think of homeschooling as you didn't want your kid to learn about dinosaurs or something, but that's kind of a lost cause. They're going to learn about dinosaurs, but still they might want to stay home because that's where the best tech is. And really, the whole commuter lifestyle, is that really what we're training everyone to do again? The next generation is you basically have two living spaces. You've got your house, which is empty much of the day, and then because you've commuted to your office, and your office building is empty most of the night, where people clean it and stuff. So you really have two spaces, a nice big house in many cases, and a lavish office in many cases. Now, if you're lucky enough to have all that, you may have a second and third house and so on. But let's just say the average commuter lifestyle, you've got a lot of time on the road. Anyway, I'm just saying the adult world kind of mirrors the insanity of the kid world in that we force them on buses and they go all over town and, you take them away from their studies. Now, education automation, way back, in the 60s by Buckminster Fuller, that addressed this issue as well. It's like, why don't we go into a mode where we let people stay home and get serious about studying? Because studying is work. And education automation is the name of that. And we can link it up to the UBI idea, the universal basic income. We can link it to the idea of paying people to do homework, work at home. You're going to be paid to stay out of trouble and learn a ton of stuff, foreign languages, it's all there. It's not like the Matrix where we could just give you a pill and you know everything. The Matrix had things like that, but still, YouTube is a faster, like you can pick up a lot of stuff more quickly if we give you a serious study carrel, is what I'm thinking. Now, net dispenser is the last thing I want to look at. Charles is the originator of this idea, and he's done a lot of work to describe it. And his model is kind of just a small nuclear family, for example, parents and kids, and they want their kids to not waste their whole lives on the internet playing games. They want them to do productive homework-related activities, but then the kids also want free-range time to just do whatever. And so you set up kind of an exchange where with a measurable amount of time spent on homework sites earns you enough credit to then have free time. So you pay your way on the internet by doing stuff you're supposed to, and from that you're rewarded with time to do whatever you want. That's the rough idea. Now I'm thinking that's also kind of a generic model for many different educational experiences. Basically, there's mandatory and elective. We're used to this from colleges now. Certain core things you're supposed to do, and then things you can elect to do. And with the computer measuring your progress, we have a way to help people like navigate a course through a learning environment. And of course you can't learn everything just on your butt sitting in some kind of hyped up learning machine, or whatever it is. It's maybe just a normal desk like this one. Um, but you can also go to maker spaces, you can learn welding, you can learn how to ride a horse, whatever else you need to do. That depends on the infrastructure outside the door. When you leave your study carrel, or even in the same building, what is it that you also need to pick up as a skill? And do we have that here? Is it robotics? Do we have a basement full of stuff you can train on there? Do you need to go sailing? Do we need you to go out? Do you need to pilot an airplane? There are simulators, right? So there are a lot of serious skills that you can get a good start in some kind of simulation. But that's not the end of the rope or story or whatever. It's not the end of the story for a lot of educational journeys, and I'm totally with you on that. Like, this is not the kind of science fiction where I pretend that we can do everything virtually and just put goggles on and you can become a brain surgeon. Not like that. You got to dissect some real brains. You got to go to labs and stuff. Not trying to make magic happen, but I do think our national and international, our global discussions need to take into account the technology that we actually do have and need to pass the torch here. And I'm not sure we're spending the time of these kids in a smart way, let alone our time as adults commuting back and forth. There's a lot of just I need to do tomorrow what I did yesterday kind of, I'll call it robotic behavior, because we need leadership, we need thought leaders, we look to politicians to tell us how to solve these issues, but I don't think they're even beginning to imagine the science fiction that's required. Like, if you're not living in the future, I think President Yang, candidate Yang, he's more in the future, and therefore I've been interested in his campaign actually. But a lot of these politicians live very much in the past, and so why we look to them to lead us into the future is beyond me. But it was beyond Fuller too. We never understood why that's the way to go, but we'll talk about that some other time. Thanks for your attention. Talk to you later.